Welcome to the In My Opinion show with Ronald, Barrington, Robinson, and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. I want to introduce our very talented co-hosts. We have Mr. Henry Hatter.
Good afternoon, Ron.
And we have Mr. Glenn Cotton.
Good afternoon, Ron.
Flint's premier attorney.
Thanks for that, Ron.
Folks, let's talk about abortion. Abortion rights are raging in several states that, if successful, would gut or suppress Roe versus Wade, which gave women the right to choose if they wanted children or not. What's really behind this tactic is that paradigm shift that we hear so much about. Year 2040, 2050, all right? My opinion is the paradigm shift, white privilege. No white babies, no votes. My friends, let's not go back to coat hangers, dark alleyways, dingy hotel rooms, and the services offered by unsavory individuals trying to make a dollar. My personal opinion, woman should have a right to choose what she wants to do with her body. Okay, we cannot have 400 and some men, mostly men up there in Washington, D.C., making decisions for women, okay? Now, there'd be a big problem, all right, if there was a push to stop them, all right? We can't allow that. Glenn, what's your thoughts?
Well, Ron, I agree wholeheartedly with the principle that men should not have anything to do with the decision-making regarding a woman's body. If the shoe was on the other foot and women were deciding that what to do with men's penis, then men would have an uproar. And men would say, no, that's not fair, that shouldn't be done. Likewise, I think men should step back and not only recognize this is a woman's decision with respect to her body, but more importantly, as I talked to others beforehand and talked about consequences. Making a decision to end a fetus's life is not an easy decision, and that decision should be made by that woman in her family, that woman to consult with her doctor, that woman to consult with her spiritual leader. That is not an easy decision to make, and when that decision is made to do that, the ability to do that should be honored and recognized by men, more importantly, but by the law. The law is the system by which our social contract operates, and our operation of that law should be fair. Men wouldn't want any woman to do anything with respect to their penis. Women should have the right to decide what to do with their uterus.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. Henry, what's your thoughts?
Well, I take a different version of what we're talking about. And in your opening statements, each one of you presumed that this discussion is for women. But men are part of that partnership that produces a pregnancy. And not only that, but 50% of the women who favor abortion, there's another 50% of the women that oppose the abortion. So women are making their statements here. And you to say or to presume that men have nothing to say is wrong.
Why would you say that a man has something to do or say to do with a woman's body?
Okay, a woman needs a man to become pregnant.
Not necessarily.
Well, how do they compare?
You can take semen and inject it and don't necessarily need a man.
Only professionals can do that.
Not necessarily, Henry. This is where technology and the ability to use what's capable exists and does exist, and people do things to try to. I'm not stretching it. It happens all the time.
Folks, I really should not be arguing with one of the
men don't get abortions. Okay.
If I could say this, folks, men. Attorney Cotton goes through this routine every day, probably in his courtroom. But he has not heard the other side of this argument. And I'm trying to present this other side. No, having a baby, if you guys can bear with me, is just like the Big Bang Theory that brought the universe into existence. Something has to happen. It's an event. not a process. You can't say, well, a baby is a living creature when his heart begins to beat, or when the baby is extracted from the body, then it becomes a living human being. That won't work, folks. No matter how you fashion this argument or the semantics, that is not what life is. Life is an event. It occurs when the semen hits the egg, and then the cell begins to divide into 2 cells, and then 4 cells, and then 8 cells, and then 16, and so on and so forth. And all the time this is happening, and you know that we have a lot of specialization that goes on in our bodies. There's tissue that forms part of the brain that's being developed at the same time. There's tissue that forms the circulatory system, the respiratory system. They're beginning to specialize throughout this whole process. It is not an event, but it's a process. And we need to think about the process that's going on when you define whether you're killing a baby or when you get pregnant. You're always killing something that's alive by the Big Bang Theory. It is all it cannot be reversed. It cannot be delineated. It cannot be discounted. It is a living species.
Now, let me ask you this, Henry.
Yes.
You're a proud father, correct?
Yes.
Saw more than one child brought into the world, right?
3.
All right. I have 3 also. So, your wife is giving birth to that child.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife is in pain.
My wife was always in pain with my 3 kids.
And the doctor asks your wife, do they want any painkiller? And your wife says, nope, I don't want any painkiller.
Okay.
All right. Doctor doesn't ask you, do you want any painkiller?
I'm not having the pain.
Because you're not having the baby.
Well, that is not my specialty. My wife's specialty is to have a baby. Because that was given to her by nature.
Okay,
by
but
God's
again,
nature.
but again, the doctor is asking your wife with respect to this ability to have this baby, whether or not she wants any relief for the pain that she's experiencing in having this baby. Doesn't ask you squat. My whole point in this, Henry, is that we understand the consequences of everything. And the consequences that a woman decides to have even when she's having that child. If that child, is she going to have a pain medication? Is she going to have an epidural? Anything of that nature? Again, to me, that's a decision that's being made with respect to the woman. I'm going to tell you, with my 3 children being born, and I was there for every last one of them, the doctor never once looked at me and said, Mr. Cotton, does your wife need an epidural? Mr. Cotton, does your wife need anything to control her pain? My wife's doctor, looked straight to my wife and asked her, what does she need? And if she needed something, then he or she was going to provide that for her medical treatment. God bless her that she didn't need any pain relief or anything of that nature, and all my kids were born naturally and all that stuff. But again, that process of seeing a human life brought into this world doesn't do anything to me but respect the sanctity of a woman's right and their body. Because again, I'm not going to let any woman make a decision with respect to my body unless it's my wife and I'm on death's doorknob and I can't make the decision for myself. Because again, I think individual choice in your own medical decision making, own treatment, anything, right to life, right to death.
Stay on the subject. We're talking about birth.
Well, with respect to birth, again, we're going to have to go with respect to a woman's right to choose with respect to
how is
whether
that defined in law as a woman's right? Not that I don't respect women's rights. I want to define something. You are part of the legal system.
I'm part of the legal system.
You probably express what 90% of all attorneys in this country and the Supreme Court agrees. Okay. But your premise for defining life and for defining
but see, your argument, and this is the same argument that we've had in law school and in undergraduate
were
school.
around really talented people.
It was called the acorn and the oak tree. So how do you differentiate from your acorn when it's planted to this oak tree that grows up in any given stage in time? You cannot. So your point that you wanted to make about your Big Bang Theory is that, yep, just like
It's
that,
an
the
event.
bang, it's an event and it's happening.
Do you believe it's an event?
Oh, I'm not going to say it's not an event. Okay.
Then it's not a process. We go out and define.
No, but again, the event.
Have an abortion as soon as
when you ignite dynamite, that's an event also, Henry. Okay,
Right.
And that's an event that has consequences. All right. And dynamite can have collateral consequences, I say, whereas an abortion doesn't. All right. So the whole thing is that you have to look at the event and the nature of the event. And men seem to get more bent out of shape with respect to this abortion issue and this event happening than any other type of event. You could take dynamite explosion, you could take nuclear explosion, anything of that nature. I'm on the subject, and it has to do with sex. No, it has to do with sex. And that's why men have this blown up attitude about this, because it has to do with women having the decision making and control over their own body. Period.
How much do you respect women who represent the opposing side of that?
I can always respect.
Of the women represent 50.
See, this is the beauty about our country,
but
Henry.
We say, well, it's a woman that's making these. It's men that are making these decisions. I don't think that men are making these decisions.
Henry, do I believe that there are women out there who believe in a pro-life point of view? Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Have I encountered women of that nature?
Yes,
I have. All right. The one thing that I will say about people
it was not men making these decisions. It was women.
Well, generally speaking, that's how our law has operated, and that is the woman has the ultimate right to make that decision. So people can, the talking heads can talk.
Not murder a child. A murder is murder in anybody's definition.
Henry, you want to call something murder, all right, and I'm not going to call it murder. See, the thing that you want to say, and when we start getting into the acorn and oak tree and the event that's happening, right? I'm not going to say that this fetus that you want to say is alive and is viable, is alive and viable, because it's a fetus, and that's exactly what a fetus is.
With a council of 500 people who are medical physicians and who are scholars on this stuff.
Okay, but again,
not attorney.
Everybody, this is the beauty about America, Henry, is everybody's entitled to an opinion. The problem is that sometimes people's opinions are not formed in fact. And see, I'm always going to defer to somebody who has the knowledge, intellect, and facts and able to support their position. And I have yet to see or hear anybody tell me that a fetus can independently support itself.
No, that's beyond you. You're going over the top.
Okay. Well, I don't think I'm going
off
the top.
But it's that process that we're going through. Babies are in the process when it's in the womb. And it's a terrible thing to kill a baby in the womb, no matter what stage it is. It's a life. But you believe a
man has a right to help make that decision. That's your point, right?
Yeah, because murder is murder. It's by definition.
All right. So you'd rather have two people involved in a murder than one?
Well, the thing is that when we begin to find ways of communicating with each other, we define some rules. Okay? And the rules were to be used by attorneys to separate fact from fiction, and to bring justice for cases of injustice. And one of the oldest ways in which we do unjust things is to kill someone. That is the first, I believe that is the first of the 10 Commandments. No, God was first. Thou shalt have no graven enemies. But but the third commandment, I believe, is thou shalt not kill. And that becomes a cardinal sin. The baby
that men always break, right? Whether it's abortion or whether it's executing somebody, we're gonna take a life,
two
right?
Different things.
Okay, but it's life, right?
Children in the womb don't have a choice. A person outside can make choices.
Is it a life or a life not a life?
A life is a life.
All right, so if you take a life and executing an abortion, and you take a life and executing somebody because you think they should die, you're still taking a life, right?
No, we got to separate those, attorney.
Oh, those are apples and oranges?
I know that you argue these things all the time, but you came into contact with a person who don't believe the premise of murder. The way we do it. Now, the way that we justify killing a person is we hand these rights over to the state and take them away from individuals, right? Now, it's a state.
I always don't believe in that. See, that's why the wonderful state of Michigan, we don't have execution.
Well,
because we don't believe in that right here.
Well, we've made some mistakes.
I guess we've been making mistakes. I guess it's been a mistake for a long time.
Well, my point here is the state can assume the individual persona and take away anything that makes you responsible for having executed a murder or having caused a murder, or the guilt that follows it. It gives that to the state. Now we're free, right? Now the state has the right to separate these things. Childbirth from executing a person for a capital murder, right? So we don't see those two as separated consequences. Am I getting too deep for you?
Well, I'm just saying in our state we have separated those.
Yes, and you do, and that's how it should be.
And the point of the matter is this, again, that men have made the decision, and the capital offense decision and all of that, those decisions were made primarily by men, all right? So when we talked about the woman's right to choose to have an abortion, that is a woman's right, not a man's right. And see, this is what men have a fundamental problem with, is a woman making a decision to something that they find that potentially is contrary to their interests.
Well, I don't think that men do that necessarily to be mean to women. I don't think
they do it to be kind to them.
I don't see men arguing over this issue. A man and his wife arguing over these issues. I don't see that. But what I don't like to see between men and women are the conflicts, the pain that they go through in living with each other, hitting each other, striking, name calling, that kind of stuff I can't deal with. But I can deal with the discussion over whether we should have that baby. That baby should look like me. I'm the dad. Men want to feel that. They want to know that. If they want babies, and in most cases, and you might know this, you probably do.
Yeah, because all three of mine look like me.
Yeah. But, men do like to see babies. They do. When they get married to a woman, they want to have children. They may not want to have them at the same time that the woman does. And that's always a struggle there but I know that my first child, I didn't want the first child right away, but she did.
Well, I'll just tell you this from my own experience, Henry, is that when my wife is a little bit older than me, and when we got together, we was like, I said, all I want is to have a child with you, just one child. So my wife said, you know what, we can do that. We can have one wonderful, wonderful child. And so we were attempting to get pregnant, and my wife calls me up, and I was working at Recorder's Court at the time, and my wife calls me and she's crying, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, I had a miscarriage. Oh. And this is before social media times and this and that, and it was so devastating. The call, I leave work automatically and go home to be with my wife. And the amount of sadness that she had because of that event. And we talked about this beforehand about consequences. So the consequence was that child was never brought into our lives, okay? But things happen for a reason. So that child became twins, Nigel and Sierra. So when Nigel and Sierra were born, I only wanted one child. So now I have two. I have a son. Nigel was born first, and then Sierra was born an hour later. And I was very, very, very fulfilled with respect to my life. I have two children now. And then the good Lord blessed me with my youngest son. And now 3 is the magic number. And that was that. But again, was amazed by that experience, number one. Number two, with respect to having that miscarriage, having that life that was taken not by aborting or anything, but by nature doing what nature does sometimes. And when you want something and it doesn't happen, the sadness that entails from that. And then when you don't think anything is going to happen, and then the joy that comes from twins. And I always tell folks this: twins give you double the joy, but they give you double the agony too. So,
I hope our audience is listening to this discussion, because this is a very serious discussion by two people that are really engaged in the dialogue here. And I'm so glad you told me about the abortion and your and then having two twins. And
you mean the miscarriage?
What did I say?
You used the word abortion.
Oh.
All right. See, and again,
I'm sorry.
When we talk about things, we and this is again part of the dialogue. It was the miscarriage to me, and we talked about what we were talking about, and that is the ending of a life.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Whether it was the life being ended by the good Lord or the life being ended by the expected mother-to-be, that life was ended, all right? And the sadness that was conveyed by that event, I think, is profound, not only to the expected father or mother, but whether it's expected that that life is going to end, or it's not expected that child's life is going to end, it still has consequences to those individuals. And I'm of the belief that nobody says and thinks that abortion is a simple, easy matter, and it's a snap of a finger, and that's and that, and there's no pain and suffering and consequences that come from that. I don't think anybody in the world really thinks that people have that belief on it. I'm of the belief that most folks think that having something of that procedure and making that decision is a tough decision and a hard decision, and it's something that is, at any respect, you have to say to yourself that this is America, and an individual should have the right to make a decision about something that has the impact on their body. So if I had a nasty disfigurement or wart on my finger, it would seem that I'd have the God-given right to walk up to the doctor and say, "Doc, take this nasty wart and remove it from my finger, because it's part of my body." And nobody, my wife, anybody else, should be able to say, "No, time out. You can't cut that off of his body. That's taking and ruining his body and whatnot. You can't allow him to do that." And again, it has to do with either the person has the absolute liberty of their body, mm-hmm. or they don't.
Well, Attorney Carl, I can appreciate where you're going with that, but those are two different things. We're talking about another breathing individual inside of a mom. And it used to be, and I'm sure that most men will tell you, that they're the least likely to love a child. Women have to drive them sometimes away because they're abusive to children. But one thing I want to say to women is that there are men who love their children. There are men who love life. There are men who have a zest for life. And life, to kill someone, a particular baby, it dampens the whole image of what we ought to become as human beings. and I want women to really understand that there are men out there that love children and they love their women, and to separate this process through birth discussion like this is not good. It's that we should not be separating from women and men were created to cohabitate.
Well, again, I'm not trying to separate. I'm trying to recognize the hypocrisy that exists from men trying to tell women what to do.
I don't think men really care about, if you were to
I
ask
know
men,
we don't care.
If you were to ask men, do you care about this argument? Do you want to participate in it? They say, no, I don't care.
Most men don't want to talk about anything.
They don't want to talk about that. So women are the ones that are making these decisions. Men back out. And so we should let women decide on their own.
That's the point.
Well, that's the way it should go. But don't condemn men for making
Nobody's condemning men.
Yes, you are.
No, wrong.
You want me to read this?
We're not condemning.
Here's what has been written.
We're not condemning men. All right. What we are condemning. What I think what this does do, it says women should have the right to choose. Okay, that's their body. Let her make that decision. Okay. There's so many children out here now. We'll use Flint for example. All right. There's a whole lot of dads that are nowhere. Okay. There's the adoption agency
involved in this discussion?
Adoption agencies are overloaded with children.
Only the politicians are involved in this.
Okay, they should not have their ass in the picture. Okay, that's my opinion.
Because to separate a man from a woman and say that you bring conflict in this situation by discrediting a woman for having a child, and the man does not want to take care of it, it's
a fact of life.
That's a distorted argument.
No, that's a fact.
Okay, it may be a fact, but let me get my thought out. That's something that we as human beings should probably improve our communications on. We need to be closer together as men and women. We need to strive for something. And this abortion issue is separating us. It's driving us to madness. And we don't need that.
It's a hot button item.
Well,
right?
It could be a hot button item, but as long as you pursue that as a hot button item and don't try to mitigate it or tone it down or something
Nobody's
like that.
trying to mitigate or turn down anything. What I'm saying is this, okay? You speak about the paradigm shift, all right?
Yeah, the paradigm shift.
White males, okay, want
has nothing
women.
to do with race.
Yes, it
nothing
does.
To do
Yes,
with
it
politics.
does. Yes, it does.
This should not be a political argument.
White males want women to have these babies, all right, because they're hoping that they'll vote Republican.
Oh no.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Well, the white man.
What is the paradigm shift?
Okay, first of all,
We got 1 minute.
The white man should have this right to want more kids. He should have that right because that's what we would do if we were in the same position.
But
guys,
politically speaking, I'm talking about politically speaking. All right.
Paradigm shift is the point at which white Americans will no longer be the arithmetic and political majority of this country.
That's my point.
Okay, but
and it's coming soon.
But even what's wrong with him wanting more kids to balance? He wants to see himself live forever.
Nothing's
just
wrong.
Like I do.
Nothing's
like
wrong.
You do.
With that, we must bring the In My Opinion show to a close. It's been wonderful. We're going to revisit this topic again, folks, so stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. I want to thank Mr. Cotton and Mr. Hatter.
You're not thinking. You're condemning me.
Until next time, stay focused.